The other main topic I wanted to talk to you about is this new training device you've developed and are working with and are studying now, the chin up goggles, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the motivation for this and how they can help athletes train?
Yeah, this is the work of my postgraduate student Alan Dunton, and he is the like all good postgrads, he's the driving force behind it. His ideas are what are creating the project design, the study designs that are there, and essentially these are goggles that occlude your vision from what's happening in your lower grade. So when you put the goggles on, you can't see your limbs unless you put them very out in front of you. Like you could put your hand right out in front of you, but it has to be up nice and high, and that's when you see it. But if your hand is down by your side, you can't see your shoulders or any of your other limbs. So these were of huge interest to us around that space for two reasons. One, as a practitioner, because the occlusion goggles that we would have been familiar with were those LCD goggles that would flash in and out, or strobe goggles and the like. And either we couldn't get our hands on them, or they were very expensive when we could get our hands on them, or they didn't really transfer very well into an open setting, an applied setting. And we always have to, the research group that I lead here is very much around that space of, is this going to impact on coaches and on their performance and on athletes? That applied element is always important. So we were looking at these goggles, and they did that. They're very robust. They're just again a plastic goggle with the lower grade that is occluded, and we started looking at a sport that they were already involved in, which was in basketball. And Alan came up with a study basically to determine, well, if we have a basketball player dribble with a basketball when they can't see their hands, does this impact on the smoothing of the skill? So essentially using these goggles as a constraint and to see was there any impact. His study was, we had three groups of basketballers, of elite level basketballers who had all played at the highest level of basketball in Ireland, and they were brought into a biomechanics lab where they were again markered up with the 69 biomarkers and the inequality system and so on and so forth. And long story short, the study showed that the effect of the goggles was palpable. There was a significant difference between those who went through their intervention with the goggles on. It was a dribble sequence that they do 400 trials of, compared to those who went through the dribble sequence without wearing the goggles. What we found was that there were significant differences in the joint angle of the elbow and the hand as a result of the goggles, which was again great to find, but and basically what we were able to show is that the people, when they were wearing the goggles, because they knew they couldn't see their hand, they were much more inclined to stay looking outward. Whereas what we saw, and we've some video footage that we kind of layer with it to get an idea of where they were looking. What happened was there was almost this 1,000-yard stare if they didn't have the goggles on. They were always attending to the ball, but they may have been not looking directly at the ball, but their attention was still on the ball, and that was having an impact on where their head position would be, let's say, in relation to when they were dribbling. In contrast to that, when they had the goggles on and after 400 trials, their head position was much more outward and forward looking, because they knew they couldn't see their hand unless they made a very exaggerated movement to look over the rims of the goggles. And what happens then as a result of this exploration that's happening with their hand to find the ball when it's not in contact with the ball is their dribbling, the quality of their dribble improved, and the smoothness of the skill improved. And that led Alan into a kind of the next phase of his research. And I suppose just a point on that paper is actually also been submitted. So we'll hopefully, again, we'll see how that goes with the reviewers. What came from that paper was Alan's interest straight away was to see, well, if we know the goggles have an impact on as a constraint, that they might have a smoothing effect of a skill, but we don't quite know, are they still attending to it essentially in their mind's eye, but they're looking elsewhere. So what's happened as a result of that, he's devised a study which has now an additional task, a dual task, where there's beyond the scope of where the athlete is standing, they're having to engage in a task on a wall, essentially, and it's number recall. While we've moved away from basketball into soccer, where they have to control a ball, while also attending to a task out in front, which would be somewhat similar to them attending to people on a thing, that they'd have to still have their head up. And are they able to recall while still engaged in the task where they're having to control and pass the ball? So again, the results for that were pretty. Again, he's pretty much finished on the analysis of it, and again, the impact of the goggles as a constraint is significant. Those groups who had to engage the task of receiving a ball and passing it while watching and recalling numbers randomly were better on a post test and a retention test if they had to do that when they would not be able to see the ball for those last couple of meters as it came into their body. So they were now encouraged to actually have to look up more, anticipate as much as they could for the ball delivery, what it was going to do, which meant that they were able to attend to more what was happening out in front of them.
That's a really nice set of studies. Do the goggles take a while to get used to when you first try them out?
The studies that Alan has devised are around that kind of 4 visit, 100 trials per visit methodology, let's say. So they'll come in, do a pre-test, then there's a familiarization, then there's your acquisition phase, post-test and retention test. Your classic kind of motor control study, where an intervention group, a control group, and a group who doesn't use the constraints, and so it's showing some very, very interesting things for these goggles as a constraint. They are like everything; they only fit in certain circumstances, in certain sporting actions, where there's a ball low down. So there's a lot of places where they're not suitable, but we're definitely beginning to see and identify sports where they are. So sports like, as I said, like basketball, where you want to be able to dribble a ball, but attend to that visual landscape away from where you are. And also maybe passing, receiving balls in soccer where the ball might come in low. Same with field hockey and so on and so forth. So it's very interesting. As I said, like all interesting research, it kind of lives and dies by the quality of the person doing it. And to Alan's credit, he's driving it in a great way, which keeps it very interesting to engage in it, but also keeps it in that place where we are ticking that applied practical box as well, that hopefully we'll be able to feed back to practitioners.
Yeah, I think you have a really nice design there. You mentioned the stroboscopic glasses a few moments ago. I did an episode on those and on intermittent vision a few weeks ago, and a listener had a really great question. And they asked, what's the difference between the stroboscopic glasses that flash on and off on the one hand, and video occlusion training, like Bruce Abernathy's work on occluding a tennis serve and having a person judge the direction? What's the difference between those two? And what I said is that with video occlusion training, and I think with your chin-up goggles, the key difference is you're occluding something specific, right? You're either occluding the ball toss in a tennis serve, or you're occluding the lower part of a body in my hands visibility, for example. Whereas with the stroboscopic glasses, you're just randomly occluding things. You're not picking out specific pieces of information. So I think that's really important and would be a reason why you're getting these effects.
Yeah, one of the things that we're actually looking at, and we haven't gone into much detail on this at the moment yet, but is in the space of martial arts, where some martial arts like Taekwondo, there's a lot of kicking in martial arts, and one of the things that in Taekwondo, and if you look down, well, then you're going to get hit by the punch, but if you look up, you're going to get hit by the kick. So one of the things that we're looking at with the goggles is if the goggles I can't see my opponent's legs, but I'm watching to identify advanced cues that tell me, well, if his shoulder has dropped on this side, well, that might mean that the kick is coming from the other side, and so on and so forth. And I think in spaces like that, and again, we've done some little thoughts around the idea of tracking an attacker and a defender. Again, your classic situation, but these goggles, we don't know yet, but if you can't see the person's feet and coming at you, then you're forced to look unless you do make a huge action to look down to their feet, which very much will take you out of the game. But then it forces you to look closer at what their body is doing. And are there cues that their bodies are giving you and telling you in advance of what's going to happen? And these goggles might have a part to play in that type of training for athletes who might need a little deliberate practice maybe around their anticipation of movement and the like.
Yeah, and just for information, you can find out more about these goggles and order your own pair at chinupgoggles.com, right?
Like yes, there's people who've been in touch, and we say to them, said, look, we're still exploring it, so we're not coming to you with all the answers at all. You go away, you had to do something crazy with them, and come back and tell us, and even challenge what we're doing. You know, that's something that, again, I try to encourage a lot with the work I do, but also with the postgrads here. To, you know, we're not coming with rock solid answers in this. You know, we're just trying to see. So that's why we're always happy to send people out samples and so on and so forth, and hey, try it and see what you come back with, let's say, you know.
Great.